Back in high school, my friends and I, 18 man at the time, would go to a sports oval after dark and smoke, drink alcohol, the usual. Lose a teen and stuff. One night I hit the ball a little too hard, and ended up spending the night passed out at the oval. I woke up still a bit drunk, and realized someone had taken my glasses away from me so I wouldn't break them during my drunken untit. I was kind to them, but now I had to work hard to get home without my glasses. This was in the era before smartphone turn-by-turn navigation for the youngin. Thankfully, when I started walking, I saw my good friend Heather was walking just ahead of me, identified by her long brown hair. Heather Island varied close to one another, and we'd been drinking together night before. So I started blindly following Connor this way of get home. About half an hour later, Heather suddenly sprints down the driveway for a random house that isn't hers. I'm perplexed, but a bit more sober now, and unable to find my way home unassisted. Only later do I realize that Hannah was not Hannah, a disembodied girl with long brown hair. So from her points of view, she was innocently walking in the early morning, then some drunk 18-year-old wakes up and proceeds to follow her for half an hour in total silence, copying her every move. From her points of view, he's thought I was following her. I later went back to the driveway she sprinted down to apologize, only to find that she didn't live there. So she must have just run down around the person's dry height to get away from. Could still feel bad, almost 10 years later. To the one. AOL software upgrades arrived from the main on the CB-ROM. Family members shouted across the house of one another of an incoming call on the landline, interrupted the painstaking 10 minutes it took to get from the America Online sign-in screen to hearing "You've got mail" reverberate through the room. Recipients of multicolored chain emails. A serial killer camping out in a young girl's shower, killing her guard up. Truly pondered the threat against their luck for the next 7 years if they didn't abide by the message's command to forward on to 7 friends. Better not risk it, we told ourselves, as we quickly typed out 7 email addresses in the recipient field. And finding everything there was to know about Paris online, something anyone can do today with a few keystrokes and a credit card, was a lot harder to debug. The Nasakori. I was 15 years old at the time. Ambiguous and exotic usernames like Pina Colada 33 or Brunette Baby 87 were all the rage. Naive as we were, early screen name pioneers, this and Onomancy the smarts. Social media was in its infancy. Sandbar was the go-to haven for teens and tweens to vent their angst, while informing the world that they were currently listening to screaming infidelities by Dashboard Confidential. Everyone was friends with Tall on MySpace. AIM didn't exist as a standalone messenger service, so it was MSN Messenger, called Bus. But if you had a true AOL account like I did, we set up with all you needed to discover this new, hyper-connected, free-for-all world of the ever 2000s World Wide Web. You're an email inbox, a new page to create a personal profile, access to chat rooms and just about any topic or hobby you could possibly imagine. It was exhilarating, and too was terrified. One afternoon, I jumped into one of these chat rooms. ISO 16F Boston. I watched the usual exchange between tall strangers scroll across my screen for several minutes, hoping to find my opportunity to finally chime in and introduce myself. Also, when I got bored and left the chat without saying a word. Lee. An instant message had paid on my screen. He didn't say anything, the message said. I know. Who is this? I responded, confused by the username I didn't beckon. And Corey, he responded. I'm 16, 8th grade in Lake Charles, Louisiana. But about you? 16 and in 8th grade? Like. And yet, I was intrigued. So, you get help on twice, or what? And teased. And so the conversation began. We struck up a brief, aligned friendship that afternoon. He shared a photo. Freckled face, brown hair. The thing I'd raised up over 5 on hustle nuts. Yet despite her friendliness, I refused to tell him where I was from, or anything personal about me beyond my first name and age. I knew little about the dangers of the internet, but I wasn't dumb either. My username was a fruity drink and some Nando's, right? Safe enough, I figured. For that ground, I did have one of those TOREs at curveballs. Its stunted features included the profile picture and a questionnaire of thought fun facts about yourself. My phantom was one of me with several friends, with no indication of which from was me whatsoever. A few days later, Chloe messaged me out of the blue. "You're peaceful." "Ah?" "Prudest with greed eyes, man," I responded. Somehow, despite my foes who containing 3 other friends, he'd accurately identify me. Tauglosser siege in time. A foul skin prick. I plenty's holding something to the effects of that not being possible, but quickly locked off. Friday the following week, I was sleeping over at my best friend's house. I was looked into my account in the background as we thirstily browsed keek eyes on hot or no. "Lee, he's my sitting here with friend Nos." I near. It's Corey. "Hi, you live in Easton. Your parents are James and Sarah Miller, and you live at 1655 South Grand. Sizzy name's underdress office had changed. Farker." You know the feeling when you're on a roller coaster during a sharp drop? Your heart jumps into your flow? That was stumbled. Fortunately, we managed to find out ARL did, in fact, have a block user feature that no. But I was there. So long, creepy 16-year-old middle schooler was scarily good online stealthing skills. It didn't last long. Next day, a screening similar to Corey's messaged me. He had another account, and Kershey blocked her. This happened 5 more times. I finally went dark for a while. Sure, I missed the thrill of seeing me yellow envelope appear in my vase from mailbox, but it was bad in the threat of being harassed by Corey. A few weeks later, I got home from school. Alexis was a baby at the time, 14 years my junior. So she had a nanny he stayed with her during the day when her parents were at work. When I walked through the door of the kitchen, she handed the phone to me. "It's for you," she said with a quizzical look on her face. "Who is that?" "Oh, they don't know. Some boy with a twang in his voice. Sounds like it from East Texas or Louisiana." "Oh, can't." "Pinero?" I finally mustered into the phone. "Hey, pretty thin. It's Corey. Hey, so my friends and I are all into the show Jackass. We're thinking of making a trip out to Houston and doing some pranks around town next week. How hilarious would it be if we surprised sweet friend door?" A Chudtown Navis laughed. I mumbled that if ski shall happen at quiz the next day, could quickly hear him gulp. Telexi Weeks, I sat with a knife under the mattress. I was absolutely terrified I'd wake up to this Lake Charles stranger boy on the balcony outside my window. How did he get a phone number? But just as soon as he'd invaded my sense of security, he seemingly disappeared. No instant messages, don't want him by if he calls to lay home. The knife finally went back into its respective kitchen drawer. 2 months passed, and it felt gloriously safe. Until the phone rang the first week at soul break. "Aye," the voice said carelessly. "Who is this?" I politely demanded. "It's me, Corey." Lindley Claire, this was not the same voice I'd heard 2 months ago. This was dripping in southern syrup. It was young and full of misty. His new voice was different, it was cold. It lacked any discernible accent. It was... I was speaking to a grown man. I'm sorry I haven't been able to talk to you, he hurriedly blasted. Why the descent rushed. I felt terrible, but the police came to my house. They took my computers away from me. I can't say why, but don't worry, I'll come to Houston soon. That was the last day I used the fruity username. I deleted that account and created a new one. I embarrassingly told my parents I'd made a huge mistake, despite having shared nothing that could have easily revealed my personal identity. Even if I had, the threat back then wasn't what it is now. That was nearly 20 years ago. People simply didn't have the online presences so they do today. As a teenager with no social media yet, I was virtually a ghost. But still, I was convinced I was somehow culpable for this stranger, this man, predator who clearly had advanced knowledge of computers and internet, singling me out and making it his mission to let everything about me, through whatever means possible. He was determined to get thee. I'm only grateful that even at 50, I knew better than to trust that this freckle-faced kid from an online chat room had fully benign intention. 2 decades later, I still wonder where Corey ended up. In 1988, my parents had their second child. This was more for the Victor, Adius. We were very crowded on our rented flat of 2 babies. My parents decided to move to a rambling, old 2-story farmhouse on a 7-acre plot in southern Ohio for more room for the family. It was well in the sticks and took all as an hour to get tile from there. My mom said the face de la Soul house are free down. I was crying and saying things like, "Don't like Mead house, Opie house, don't like. Scary house, mama, don't like." My mom says his behavior was very out of character for me, but I stopped complaining about the house after a few weeks, so she choked it up to stress at the move. Now, this house was ramshackle its foot, and in the middle of nowhere. The kitchen was the far rear of the house, and until recently before we moved in, still had a working ancient wood-burning cooking stove against the back wall. This had cooled the back wall of fire a couple of months before we moved in and caused a lot of damage. A lot of this damage wasn't fixed, so my young, broke parents got a very cheap rent agreement, but I loved the 80s. On the second floor and directly above the kitchen was a locked room. The landlord claimed to have had heavy fire damage. Poor her son, who had done the repairs, claimed the only fire damage left was in the kitchen, since it had been the worst and was beyond his skill level to fix. Either way, the landlord was adamant the room was off-limits, and my parents always respected that. I would have locked 100% law. I know all this, but could I heard stories about the crappy farmhouse at the creaky dull my whole life, and there were pictures of us in and around the farmhouse. The locked door was right next to the upstairs landing, so there was no avoiding it. Above my parents had told me it gave him the... After a few months we moved in. My mother and I were in the yard with our picked-over mix, Boss. She was handing laundry, and I was rolling around with the dog. She said that just as she noticed that everything was way too silent, Boss started going eggshell from surprisingly far away. About 500 yards from the house on the left, there's a small duck park. Boss was in between the two, running towards my mom, then turning, running back towards the pond, barking frantically the whole time. My mom saw thrashing around in the middle of the pond. She took off towards the water full speed. Boss beat her there and dragged me out of the walls himself. "Thank you, Puffer. Love you." Although my mom was confused how we got so far so fast, and how I got into the center of the pond since it was over my head and I couldn't swim, she figured she'd underestimate. Brought in the baby gates and playpen. I was to visit, astounded. A few weeks later, she was coming downstairs. Boss was outside, Victor asleep in his crib, and I was in my playtime in my room upstairs. I also had a gate on my door, and one in the top of the stairs. The stairs ran up from the side of the kitchen, so my mom says she could listen for us crying or fussing while cooing. We're most in no longer than 15 minutes after the last sound she looked in on his kids. Boss starts go crazy again of the yard. She runs out to check on us. Victor's still sleeping. Every bay the gates is still shut and locked. But I am not in my room. Frenzied sage. Feels I'm not in the house at all. Sudden image of boss saving me from drowning causes my mom to rush outside to see what he's trying to tell him this time. She said he would run circles of the yard, barking uncontrolledly. When she got outside, he took off towards the right, away from the pond. He would run ahead, turn around and bark at her mother, wait for him to catch up a little before racing off again. He ended up leading her almost a mile and a half out onto the dirt road separated our property from our neighbors. He led her to a thick stand of trees on our neighbor's side of the rocky drive. She sent what hit her first was the foul stench of advanced decay. She plowed into the trees with her horse at her foes and a stomach full of ice. She said she noticed many piles of corrugated tin, tarps, tires, another degree. The master was emanating both strongly from these junkyard cans. Peeking under a sheet of tin, she discovered the extremely decomposed corpse of a butchered cow. She headed deep back into the thickets, where the tree grew with denser. She said less care was taken to cover the remains. Grisly pieces of bones and russet chunks of bovine littered the area. Parmi or labor, in an effort to cheat taxes, had been illegally slaughtering cattle and hiding the remains in at least one of the few thick strands of trees around. She found me in a dense center thicker, just standing there, looking around like I was confused, surrounded by carnage. She said I didn't see her scattered of just stunned it. She rushed over to me, and after ascertaining that I wasn't injured, began questioning me why I was there, how I got there, etc. Keep in mind that although when Mulder said I started speaking very on, I still didn't have much of a vocabulary. She said I told her, with that serious look only small children can give, then the children were up here. Shutting her punt, thought that anyone, even children, could walk right past her through the kitchen, get me from upstairs, and walk right back past her on the way down the stairs and out with me. She demanded to know what children, where the hell they are now. I looked at her death serious, and told her the ones that live with us, in the reeve at the top of the stairs, and that I didn't see them anymore. After a moment of stunned silence, she started asking all kinds of questions about these children. However, she told me that I refused to say anything else. She said as long as she questioned me about what happened, I would just stand there stared at her with a serious expression, and her mouth closed. He said the same pattern held true every other time she bottled. So she was always left wondering, and immediately began hounding my dad on moving closer to the town. While the incident with me getting to the pond was highly unlikely, it was at least remotely possible. My mother is adamant that me being in the hidden salty of that day was flat impossible. She says there is nowhere I could even known it was all there, but first have the ability to open and relock the baby gates, get downstairs, past her, and end up almost 2 miles down the road, and in this place in under 15 minutes. I was only 2, and as slow and clumsy as most toddlers. As I said, she's still shaken by her after 30 years. Personally, they have no idea what happened, my dough. I thought about hypnosis, but homicide did I really want to remember? If you'd best allowed it the missed. Because whatever the fault those things were, I really don't think they were children. In 2004 to 2007, our best friend Casey and I worked at small, family-owned seafood restaurants in Winchester Bay, Oregon. In 2006, we were invited by the cook and a small group of regulars to come to a bonfire in the bay to watch the fireworks with them on the 4th of July. Thinking it sounded interesting and having dough with the plans, we agreed to go. Upon arrival, we found the boys drinking next to a huge fire, situated in a large, flaring types to her grass. There are a ton of regulations about burning in Oregon because of the risk of wine fires that can burn out of control very quickly. So this huge grassy area was perfect, especially since it secured us fire pits before lighting anything. This grassy stretch was surrounded on 3 sides with dense thickets of evergreen. There was one wide, clearly defined trail that led through the trees to the water's edge, and a gravel parking area behind us. Being 20 years old, we weren't supposed to be drunk, but we didn't know these men that well. We decided to stay sober and just enjoy the fire and the upcoming show in the sky, just in case they started acting inappropriately. Of the chant for a bar, the guys decided they were to partake in an horrible smoking set. Casey and I say nerfa, and the boys head off into the trees, took off the chiba. Casey and I are standing alone by the fire, just vibing and enjoying the evening. Suddenly I get a strange sensation, and my eyes keep wandering to a specific area of the tree line. It's a crawling sensation which I'm trying to ignore, but I can't help myself. I just keep glancing over. After a minute or so, an older woman comes walking out the trees. She was not on or near the trail. This tiny woman had walked through an area of thick undergrowth in the pitch black. She was short and looked frail. Although it was hard to tell it, she was dressed in layers of raggedy long skirts or dresses, and had several shawls or blankets wrapped around her shoulders, like a human wrecked by. She was hunched over and walking slowly, as if she were old and her joints were bothering her. She's a little over 100 yards away, and it was twilight, so I couldn't make out her face or features. Just her outfit, which, not gonna lie, is pretty creaky. Figuring she was a homeless person who desired some respect and sympathy, I tried not to stare. However, when an observer Casey, she was watching this woman too. The woman had a full soul vibe about her that made it hard not to watch her. She gave off the feeling of a wild animal in your house. When the was probably not too dangerous, but you have to keep your eyes on it just in case it becomes aggressive before you can get out, if that makes sense. Feeling over knees like a cat trying to shake. Kitty says to me that asked 3 of them saying this. I reply yes, she's probably just a homeless person, poor lady. Casey responds by telling me that the woman has given her weird fearing, and it makes her skin crawl to the point that Katie feels she shouldn't look away. This validation of my misgivings is not. Casey and I stand in silence, watching the woman make her slow, tottering way along the tree line toward front left. I'm still feeling bad for staring, but going through all the reasons in my head that I'm an idiot for worrying about a decrepit grandmother, even if he does look like a stereotypical winch. Suddenly, the woman comes to a complete stop. Until this moment, she'd been looking at the ground. She now stops, raises her head, and looks directly at us. Feeling of dread immediately hits me in the gut. My stilling drops. Her look feels malevolent, even though I still can't make out facial features in the. Then, no shit, this woman raises her left arm and points straight at us, while letting out the most blood-curdling screech I've ever heard in my mind. I think my heart started beating for a sec. Then, and I'll have this image in my head until the day I die. Right in front of her pointing finger, a silhouette of the human, made of what looked like black mist, coalesced. Shadow person, the first one I'd ever seen. You don't know they just appeared, or if Atsy came from her body. I barely had time to register what I was seeing before the thing flew towards us. It moved so incredibly fast that it blared and covered about 300 feet in less than 3 seconds. This thing passed directly between me and Casey, on my left and her right. It literally blew my hair back over my shoulder on that side when it rushed past us. We spent several seconds in complete shock, staring at each other with bloodless, pale faces. Simultaneously, we both turned to look at the woman. She was no longer looking at us or acknowledging us in any way. But we had picked up a pace, and she was doing her hobbling sort of run in the direction she had originally been headed, eyes on the ground. Casey and I stood in silence, each afraid he might have just gone mad. At first, I was afraid we even asked her if she'd see nothing. The look in our face, and you should sense something. She finally asked if I'd seen what she just did, because she wasn't sure if it was real. We compared notes and realized that we had both witnessed the same thing. When I started freaking out about the fact that the sting had been reading off to blow my hair back, she admitted that while she did not experience her hair moving, she hadn't seen my hair blow back as she turned her head to watch it move between. I have no idea had I won what, or why she went after it. It looked like a shadow person, but who knows what they even are. Never in my life have I ever heard of a shadow person doing a living person's bidding. Now I've walked into her after this experience. I've never seen her again, and I surely never once her. This experience has bothered me for years, and so I bring it to the internet to find out if anyone else has ever witnessed a shadow person and a living person working together. Or at least get some theories as to what the hell happened now. I think we saw the sheriff thing once more a couple nights later, but it didn't have a human shape that time, so I'm not sure if it was the same entity. But the timing seemed too coincidental. This happened to me when I was 21 after an OD suicide attempt. I woke up in hospital in the middle of the night to a nurse saying he needed to replace my RV. He jabbed me 2 or 3 times, but doesn't even hit a vein. So I ask you get someone else to try. He says no, keeps going. As he's doing this, he's pushing and wiggling the needles around under my skin, saying he's trying to get the vein. By the 7th needle, it registers that he's intentionally trying to harm me. Ask him, why are you doing this? He says, it's your own fault you here. I was too weak to fight back, and it's the middle of the night. No Nasarana can call out, sir. I've no idea how many times it ended up puncturing me in the... The next day, a different nurse was taking out my IV. She was horrified of the cushions that was the biggest needle she'd ever seen used on other living patient. But show why you'd use needle on a dead patient? Well, that's what she said. A lot of people show piss off when I tell about her. It's so terrifying being alone, helpless, and knowing the person who is supposed to care for you hates a G1 wants to cause you. So yeah, night nurse who lost huge needles and hates mentally gauss. I slummy again.